Thanks to Indeed for supporting the Productivity Show. Right now, small businesses have to be more efficient than ever. Every hire is critical, and Indeed is the #1 job site in the world. Get a free $75 credit at Indeed.com/TPS. Terms and conditions apply. Offer valid through December 31st. Welcome to the Productivity Show, a podcast by Agent Efficiency to help you maximize your productivity so you can get everything done without having to sacrifice your health, family, and things that matter to you. We've helped tens of thousands of people save time, be happier, and become more productive. Now, if you deal with people in your business, and of course, who doesn't, a key tool is a customer relationship management system, or CRM. Not having one can hold you back, and if you implement the right one the right way, can help take your business to the next level. In this episode, I talked to Amy Payne, a certified professional organizer, productivity consultant, and founder of Lasting Order. Amy and her team help individuals and small businesses in all sorts of ways, but today we mainly focus on how she helps small businesses choose, implement, and use CRMs. It's a topic we get questions on all the time. Of course, since she also runs a professional organizer company, I also ask her for her top tips on organizing a productive workspace. I just couldn't help myself. You can find links to everything that we share in the show notes by going to theproductivityshow.com/329. And now, on with the show. All right, welcome back to the podcast. This is Brooks Duncan. I am one of the co-hosts here of the Productivity Show and from Agent Efficiency, where we help people be more productive at work and in their personal life. I am super excited to have Amy Payne here today from Lasting Order. No pressure, but I've wanted to do this podcast episode for about 2 years now, I'm going to say. I'm super excited that it finally happened. Amy, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
My name's Amy Payne, and I'm a productivity consultant with Lasting Order. It's my company I started, and we do home organizing as well. We've been in business for about 9 years, work with individuals and businesses to really help them clear out the clutter, whether that's physical clutter or digital clutter, get organized, be productive. And my personal favorite is working with business clients to help them organize their technology. I'm a little bit of a self-professed technology geek. So,
yeah, I think that's how we first became friends, is geeking out over technology like Evernote and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's been a while. Awesome. So today there's being a professional organizer, productivity consultant, there's like a million things that we could talk about today. But for the reason why I'll get into in a minute, I want to focus specifically in on CRMs, customer relationship management systems, which I know you work with a lot. But of course, since you are a professional organizer and help people with their organization and productivity, I would definitely be remiss if we didn't get into a little bit of workplace optimization as well. So just to warn you, that is going to be coming later.
All right. I can take whatever you throw at me, Brooks.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see if that's true.
Maybe.
But to start with, what we always like to do, for those who are regular listeners to the podcast will know, but if you're new to this, we always start every single episode with what we call our top 3 resources. So these are 3 productivity, at least tangentially related to productivity, things that we're liking these days or that we're recommending. And when we have guests on, like Amy, we love to do is see if they have top 3 resources of their own. So Amy, do you have 3 resources that you'd be interested in sharing with the audience?
Sure. There's always bright, shiny objects, but these are the 3 brightest, shiniest objects at the moment, right? The first one is Atomic Habits. It is a book by James Clear. And I'm really into this book right now. I'm not done yet, but I'm loving it, where especially he talks about habit stacking, where you're stacking a tiny habit on top of another habit that you already have. So that one's at the top of my list right now. The second one is the Pomodoro method. I love the Pomodoro method. It helps me focus on one task at a time. And if you're not familiar with it, it's basically 25 minutes of uninterrupted time on a specific task or project, and then you take a 5-minute break. And then after a few Pomodoros in a row, you take a little bit longer break. And it just helps you really hone in on one thing at a time so that you can be productive and focused. And the third one that's my favorite at the moment, this is brand new to me. There's an app called Good Notes, and Good Notes is super fun because you can take your iPad and your Apple Pencil, and I personally downloaded a digital planner onto it, and I can write on the digital paper or digital iPad screen as if I were writing on paper. And it's so much fun with an Apple Pencil. You can change the color, you can add stickers, all things that you would do on a physical paper planner, but you can do it in Good Notes with a digital planner. So
awesome. Those are three great resources. We'll have links to everything at theproductivityshow.com/329. James Clear has actually been on the podcast before, episode 217. So you can go to theproductivityshow.com/217 if you want to hear our chat with him about that. That's a really great episode. Pomodoro method, we are huge fans of it here on the podcast as well. So we'll link to an article we wrote about that. And then we'll link to Good Notes as well. I'm a big Good Notes fan as well. I'm not currently using it because somehow I have no idea how, but somehow I have bent my iPad. So I don't know if my kids sat on it or if it got bent in my backpack, but there's like a really noticeable bend. So writing on it isn't working right now, but once I get a new iPad, I will definitely get back to that. Good Notes is a great app. All right, Amy Payne. When I first met you, which I'm going to say was at the NAPO, the National Association of Productivity and Organization. I can never, every time I mention it on the podcast, I get it wrong or have to think about it. So thank you. NAPO.net plug. We first met at the conference back in, I'm going to say, I don't even know the year, but I know it was in New Orleans. And at that time, I think you were mainly focused on home organization. So what a lot of people traditionally think of as professional organizers, like organizing your, your garage, organizing your home, your living room, all that sort of stuff. How did that move to organizing businesses in productivity consulting? And do you still do, the home type stuff? What was that transition like?
Well, it's interesting. I'm about to give you a tidbit fact that you may not know about me, but my very first client, I actually organized an office. So I've been organizing offices from the very beginning, but did not call it productivity consulting. I think that I jumped on that bandwagon around the time NAPO changed their name from just the National Association of Professional Organizers to Productivity and Organizing Professionals. I definitely have been working with business owners all along, but did not focus on that until I had a solid base of employees that were handling most of the residential organizing. Once I got that solid base of home organizers that were handling a lot of work, doing a lot of consultations, I was free to move on to things that at the time I was more excited about, which are technology and working with business owners. I think as a business owner, I realized that there's a lot of other business owners out there that aren't nearly as organized as I am, and therefore they need help with all of these technologies and systems and processes to help them run their businesses smoothly. I don't know about you, but I don't think I've met a business owner yet who got into business for the sake of running the business. They get into the business for the sake of doing whatever it is the business does. And then running the business is something they have to learn and grow as they go along. So.
Right. So you really help them focus their time, focus in on being able to actually do the things that make them money and not so much about having to find papers and connect applications and deal with email and all that sort of stuff. You help them make that super, super efficient so that they can actually, run their store, sell their product or service. Exactly right.
Exactly.
So like I said, there's a million, we could go a million different directions with even the conversation we just had. However, I want to narrow in today on CRMs or customer relationship management. And here is why. A couple of years ago at that same conference, but not in New Orleans this time, it was in Pittsburgh, I'm going to say, Amy and I presented, it was my very first presentation, a talk called, I hope I'm going to get it, if I remember right, it was 9 Tech Tools to Skyrocket Productivity. What a great title. And so we did it together. It was really well received. And then at the end, you know how when you present at a conference, always, people will come up after and ask questions and, talk about the presentation. Super normal. So of course that always happened. And that did happen this time. People came up to ask us questions and, I was answering some questions. People, were asking me stuff, but there was like huge crowd around Amy. It was like presenting with Beyonce, right? And everybody was asking.
Wait. I don't think this is exactly how this went down.
And this is how I remember it. That everyone was asking Amy about, because part of her presentation was talking about a CRM that she uses and how she can help people use their CRMs. I don't even know if that was a big part of your business at that time, but I know the CRM part of your talk was really, really well received and people had a lot of question and interest in it. And so ever since that time, and ever since I got on the podcast, and we get questions about CRMs all the time too. Whenever we do a question episode or questions with our dojo or our online community, people ask us about CRMs. And I've always had it in the back of my mind, I got to get Amy on to talk about CRMs. So finally was able to make it happen. So first of all, I guess I should ask this question before we go further. I just want to double check. You still work with CRMs. That's still something you help people with, I'm going to assume, right?
Yes, I do. Now, can I tell my version of how that whole thing went down?
Only if it makes me look good, yes.
It does, actually. So that was my first time presenting anything on a national level. So I was a little bit intimidated. And here's Brooks. And of course, he's in with all of the, big wigs of the association. Everybody knows who he is. And I'm like, who am I on this stage with this guy who's so well known, So anyway, that's the way mine goes is Brooks helped skyrocket my awareness in the industry by co-presenting with him on stage. So people may have been interested in the CRM at the end, but it was really Brooks's presence on the stage is what brought it all together. So we had a good time.
We did have a good time, and I'm going to cut that clip out and send it to my wife, just so you know.
Yes.
All right, let's get into it. So CRMs, like what is a CRM exactly? Like if so, like why would somebody even need one?
So personally, I think that a CRM is essential for pretty much every small business or any business in general. It's customer relationship management. So if you think of it in terms of a super ramped up contact management system, right? You've got the contacts of everyone that you need to be communicating with, current customers, past customers, vendors, all the different categories of people that you're communicating with. And it's a way for you to keep track of each of those people. Now, what that means to each industry, each type of business can be completely different, but it's a way of managing your relationship with your customers, with your future customers, leads, vendors, like I said. So kind of everybody, keeping them all in one place. Now, some CRMs have a lot more. I mean, we can get into the details of lots of different CRMs where some of them have task management, project management, marketing included with it, all kinds of other things. But just for the beginning of this conversation, it's a place to keep your contacts and track your interactions with people.
I think, well, you would know this better than me, but the way I envision this working is people tend to, if they're starting out in their business or even in their career, if they work with a lot of people, they'll start with like having the contacts in their phone or in Outlook, or maybe they'll have an Excel spreadsheet with their customers or the people they're working with or prospecting to or something like that. That's how I envision it starts. Is there like a point where people should go from doing it that way into a more, let's just call it real CRM for lack of a better term? Is there a point where people should kind of switch it up, or should people in a perfect world, they should just start with a CRM?
I mean, really in a perfect world, I'm a big CRM fan. So I would say start with a CRM, but I am aware, and it does work easier for a lot of small business owners to just start with the contacts in their phone or a spreadsheet. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but there comes a point at which you're not able to remember, who do I need to call back? When did I say I would contact that person? What did I say I would send to this person? You start having the same communications over and over and over to where you need to set up some sort of a system where you can automate and you're not able to remember everything in your head. I tell people, as soon as you start forgetting things, it's time. Or I would rather it be before you start forgetting things. It's time to set up a CRM. So I don't know about you, but I have a terrible memory. So if I had to keep all of that information in my brain, everything would fall through the cracks. No matter how organized I am, that doesn't mean my brain can handle that volume of information. So I prefer to get that information into a text system so that I don't have to think about it anymore. I get a reminder when it's time to do something.
Indeed knows it's a cautious time for businesses across America. Uncertainty flavors every decision, every financial commitment is vetted, and now your next important hire is more crucial than ever. Indeed is here to help. Indeed.com is the #1 job site in the world because Indeed gives you the best people fast. Unlike other sites, Indeed gives you full control and payment flexibility over your hiring. You only pay for what you need, you can pause your account at any time, and there are no long-term contracts. Plus, Indeed provides powerful tools to make your search that much easier, like sponsored jobs, which are shown to be 3.5 times more likely to result in a hire. With 73% of online job seekers visiting Indeed each month, Indeed is going to get you the important hire you need, just like they have for over 3 million businesses. Right now, Indeed is offering our listeners a free $75 credit to boost your job post, which means more quality candidates will see it fast. Try Indeed out with a free $75 credit at Indeed.com/TPS. This is their best offer available anywhere. Go right now to Indeed.com/TPS. Terms and conditions apply, and offer is valid through December 31st. Well, I guess it goes back to what you were saying, right? If you're a small business owner, your focus should be on the thing that is your business. It shouldn't be on remembering if ABC Corp, it's time for them to remow their lawn or something like that, right? That you shouldn't be trying to remember that. You should be focusing on making sales.
Exactly.
When you are having a conversation with like a business owner and you're trying to convince them of this, what is your kind of like sales pitch to people? What do you tell them that an actual CRM can do for them that they don't already have with whatever it is they were doing before?
Right. Well, it's interesting. For example, I just sat down with a small business owner a couple of weeks ago for the first time, and we were talking through their digital systems, their technology, email systems, their phone, their contacts, how their smartphone was working for them, how are they managing their tasks. And I brought up a CRM, and they were like, well, what's that? And I'm like, exactly what you need. That's what that is. You're telling me that you're struggling with returning phone calls on time. You're struggling with keeping track of all the different emails that you get. You get customers and leads that are reaching out to you through, Twitter, Facebook, all these different social media. You're getting it through phone calls. You're getting it through your website, through your email. And how do you capture all of that information if you don't have one central hub that you're organizing that information into? That's how I sell it. They're like, oh, there's a thing like that? That's amazing. I need that. Then the big question is like, which one? How do I know which one I need, right? So first, yes, you need one. If you're listening to this podcast and you have a business and you have more than 10 contacts that you need to keep track of, you need a CRM.
All right, I'm convinced. And well, I mean, you led into the perfect next question is, so you've got somebody on board. So you've twisted their arm, you've convinced them, okay, this is something that needs to happen for you. I mean, there's a million out there, go from super, super simple to super, super complex. How do you pick one? Like, how do you help them decide which one to use? And how do you kind of like match up the level of complexity for what they need?
Right. I think for most people who aren't even familiar with what a CRM is, they want to go with something very basic, very simple. If the business is brand new and it's just one person right now, I think you just need to find, kind of an out of the box starter CRM that you don't have to do much customization to. If you have employees, you've got other complexities. This gentleman I was working with a couple of weeks ago has 3 businesses. You start to get into, a lot more detail with the CRM. So one of the things that I work with my clients, I have a CRM worksheet, and it basically just lists all the different kinds of features that you could have in a CRM, and they rate it on whether it's a high priority or not. And then what I do is I kind of go to my bank of here, the CRM, my kind of go-to ones. There's a few that I would consider myself an expert in, and there's quite a few that I've dabbled in or researched for a client that I'm familiar with, but there are millions of CRMs out there. I feel like every single time I talk about CRMs with people, I find out that there's like 10 more that I've never even heard of. So I think that the main factor that I personally look at when I'm working with a client is I look at what systems are you already using. If you're a Microsoft person, you want to find a CRM that works with your Microsoft systems. If you are a Google person, you want to make sure you find a CRM that works with your Google systems. If you're already paying for, say, like Microsoft 365, I wouldn't encourage somebody to switch over to Evernote necessarily if they already are paying for OneNote. So whatever system you have, you want to look for a CRM that integrates with the systems you already have. So if you have Google Calendar, don't pick a CRM that won't work with Google Calendar. So
solid advice.
Or be willing to change.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Well, I guess that leads into the flip side of that, which is, and you kind of touched on it, like, are there any mistakes that people make, or there are any things people have tried to do with CRMs that you think really should be avoided? I guess one of them is trying to use one that doesn't integrate with all the stuff they usually do. Are there any other like mistakes or problems that you've seen people go, roads people probably shouldn't have gone down?
One mistake I've seen people do is they will pick a free CRM, and there are several free CRMs out there that as soon as you grow, as soon as you want to add anything, you're talking about a huge price increase per month. And I'm not going to name any names, but there are CRMs out there where they lure you in with, hey, here's this free CRM. And the next thing you know, they're trying to charge you $500 a month for marketing. And you're like, are you kidding me? I'm a small business. There's plenty of other CRMs available for, $50 or less a month per person where you can get that marketing included. But a lot of people are afraid to spend money on a CRM. So don't cheap out. If you find one that's going to work for you, you need to just suck it up, pay the money, and make it happen, because it's worth every penny if it works for you.
Yeah, free sounds good until it doesn't, until you hit that wall where you need to either switch to something else, which is a huge cost in time, if nothing else, or like you said, the plan is going to jump up through the roof, and then you've got problems.
Exactly. So one other thing that I failed to mention too, when you're looking for a CRM, is think about how your customers are communicating with you and what's the most important thing for you in a CRM. Like, do you need just contact management? Do you need your social media feed to come into the CRM? Your messenger messages? Do you need it to automatically connect to your email system, or are you okay with forwarding emails in? Do you need it to have like a to-do, a task management system, project management? How are you handling the information? Some CRMs won't let you list by company. They'll only let you list by person. Some of them will let you pick if it's by person or by company. So there's so many different varieties and choices. Just be careful do your research ahead of time, and preferably find somebody who knows something about CRMs to help you navigate that, instead of spending 45 hours researching all the different CRMs that exist.
I think sometimes people have a hard time envisioning, if it's not a tool that they're super familiar with already, which is often the case for CRMs. I think a lot of times people have a hard time envisioning what like success would look like what something, a tool like this can actually do for them. You got features and stuff like that, and it sounds good, but it's hard to envision what the kind of like future state would look like. Do you have examples, you don't have to name them or anything, but do you have examples of maybe people you've worked with in the past where you've helped them implement this CRM, or maybe for yourself as well, you helped them implement this CRM and their business has really benefited from it in some way? Like, what are kind of like those the promised land that you've actually seen in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that to your point of seeing an end product, I do think that it serves you well to find out what other people in your industry are using. Because if there's a CRM that's fantastic for real estate, why would you take one that's not designed for real estate and try to reinvent the wheel? So, for example, I have a real estate agent as a client, and instead of pushing her towards one of the CRMs that I would consider myself an expert on, I said, let's find the best one for real estate agents. And we actually went through a couple of different ones before we found one that just works. I mean, it's amazing when you look at even a CRM that was created for real estate. Some of them do not play nice with the locations that you get real estate leads from, like Zillow and Realtor.com. They just don't integrate well, or they don't play nice together. So we picked one for her and got it all set up. And it's just amazing that it can take several different processes or systems that she was doing before, and it integrates it into one, gives her one place to go to, and it makes her life a whole lot easier, especially when, in her case, we're talking about a lot of autoresponders. She gets a lot of leads from Zillow that may or may not be good leads, but she's able to not have to waste her time dealing with them. She's able to put them into an autoresponder to where they're getting the information that they were looking for, and she's not wasting time following up with leads that aren't really leads. So that has been one specific situation that's worked out well.
Actually, that raises a question. How can somebody, let's say somebody finds a CRM that looks like it will be good for them. Maybe they've checked the features, they've compared it to what their needs are, and they're like, oh yeah, this one looks good. Is there a way to find out if something is going to work out for them without them having to go through this huge process and like totally changing their business, like, and getting like way too far down the road? Like you mentioned that realtor, I think you mentioned, had to try a few of them until they found one that kind of like fit like a glove. Do you have any tips for starting out kind of in a simple way so that people will know early if they've got to like pull the eject seat?
Well, I think one thing is the more organized your business is ahead of time, the easier it's going to be to implement a CRM. If you don't have any business systems or processes, you're going to find a very difficult time with the CRM, because not only are you implementing a new technology, you're creating your system and your processes as you go. So if you even have on paper or in an Excel spreadsheet, when I get a new client, I do step 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever that business process is. Then when you get a CRM, all you're basically doing is inputting it into the CRM instead of reinventing what your business is doing. So that was part of the problem with her business, was she did not have good processes to begin with. So as we started developing her processes and setting up the CRM at the same time, we realized that some of her processes weren't working well with the CRM. And she was changing her mind because it wasn't an established process. So that was part of it too. So it's tough when you're trying to kind of revamp everything about your business at once.
Yeah, I can see that being a challenge. All right, so people have probably been yelling at their phones for the last 10 minutes, and I don't want to get a bunch of angry emails. So I'm going to loop back to something you said. You mentioned that you have your favorites. You have a list of CRM, or a few CRMs that either you're an expert in or you really like. So I'm going to get lots of angry emails if I don't loop back and find out, what are those faves? What are the CRMs that you tend to gravitate towards, bearing in mind that sometimes a niche setup might lead somebody in a different direction. But in general, like, what are some of your fave CRMs?
Okay, so now we have to name drop, huh?
Yes, exactly. I'm not going to let you get off this call without
Okay.
without naming names. You don't have to say the ones you hate, but I want to
Yeah,
know the
no.
ones you love.
There's really two that I personally have used and loved. And I could probably talk the remainder of the time about the differences between them and what's good and bad about each of them. First of all, I want to say there is no perfect CRM. So if you think that you're going to find the perfect CRM, you're not. Once you've picked one, I highly recommend that you do everything in your power to make it work for you. Because like you said, switching is a pain in the neck. And that's what I did recently was switch CRMs. So I have used Insightly for probably 5 or 6 years in my business. I won't tell you what I used before that. But I still love Insightly, and I would consider myself for sure an expert in Insightly. Insightly is a wonderful CRM for businesses that do not have an industry specific CRM. If you're an individual, coach, organizer, small business service provider, it's not product based. So I'm talking specifically like service type businesses, not products and inventory, not retail. It's not a point of sale system. It's specifically a CRM. That I would say is probably my ultimate favorite. Now, I'm actually doing a presentation at next year's NAPO conference, a co-presentation with another productivity consultant in Kentucky. And she is a huge fan of 17 Hats. And I had researched 17 Hats probably 6 or 7 years ago and was not impressed with it at all. And in talking to her and preparing for this presentation, she kind of piqued my interest. And so I actually just am in the process, still about 85% done, switching everything over to 17 Hats. There are some features with that are just phenomenal. I would say 17 Hats is a fantastic CRM for people who are just getting a first CRM. It's maybe not as full featured as Insightly as far as customizations go, but it's great out of the box. You can just kind of plug and play, and it's got a lot of different automations and features that are available that Insightly doesn't have. But then Insightly is super customizable. So if you have a little bit more complex business or multiple employees, I would probably lean towards Insightly. It's got all kinds of, basically you can customize almost anything on it. Depends on how detailed you want to get with your CRM.
So
beginner out of the box, 17 Hats.
Awesome. So yeah, we'll have links to both of these at theproductivityshow.com/329. I've been taking notes here while Amy has been talking. Since you're in the process of going through a CRM migration as we speak, it sounds like it's very possible that people listening to this, maybe they tried to implement a CRM at one point and then they hate it, and they're listening to this interested in switching to something else. Are there any tips you have or things to avoid if you want to do a smooth migration from one system to another? Not necessarily specific to Insightly and 17 Hats, but just in general migrations. Do you have any tips on a successful migration?
Absolutely. Yeah, I help a lot of clients with their migrations, primarily into Insightly, which is, I would look carefully at how you integrate your data with the CRM, because I will say that is a weak point of 17 Hats. Importing people is not very fun in 17 Hats. So we're having to do a lot more manual than what I expected. In Insightly, it's a lot easier to import and migrate your data over, which I said I've worked with a lot of clients on getting their data moved over. So to me, it doesn't matter where your data currently is. If it's in, Google Contacts, Apple Contacts, if it's in an Excel spreadsheet, whatever it's in, scattered all over everywhere, doesn't matter. I would recommend that you put all of your data into one, or maybe not one, we'll get into that. Put it into an Excel spreadsheet to start with. So you put all of your data from all your different places into one Excel spreadsheet, and then you organize your data, and then you can take sections of it and import sections at a time. And I could probably talk for 3 hours about how to do this well. But the key is you want to make sure your data is cleaned up. Some CRMs, when you export your data, or some CRMs, when you input your information, they don't have set fields for you. You're allowed to kind of create your own fields, which can cause an issue with you may have put it in as a mobile cell phone on one or a mobile phone number on one and a cellular phone on another, which is going to create two different columns. When you go to import it, you want to make sure both of those numbers are actually lined up in the same column so that as you import it, it is more of a clean data import. So I've spent many, many hours cleaning up these spreadsheets of data, getting all of the home addresses in one column, all of the business addresses in the other column, getting that all cleaned up. But that's what I would recommend is do it in Excel. It's much easier to take it into a spreadsheet format, fix it all, make sure that the header on your column matches the field that you're going to be importing it into. And then you can import. And I've got lots more tips for that.
Great. So that's actually a great tip. So instead of trying to shoehorn information from a bunch of different systems into your new system, get it to Excel first, because pretty much everything can get something to Excel or CSV, right, which you can then import. And then it's way easier to like mess around with it in Excel than to be clicking around in some system trying to go crazy.
Exactly. That kind of data migration, I'll tell you, is much easier the less data you have. As you can imagine. So if you're a large company right now and you have a CRM and you're not excited about it, you may want to see if there's tweaks or customizations that you can make before you jump ship completely. So just a thought.
All right. Well, I'm glad I asked. I didn't even think of that whole Excel thing. So I'm glad I asked. All right. I warned you this was coming. So since you run a professional organization and productivity consultant company, a lot of people who are listening to this either work from home or, are able to go into their office. And one question we get a lot is, and there's a lot of interest, this could actually be a whole separate podcast episode, is organizing your workspace. So have a functional workspace that works for you instead of against you. That's something we talk about a lot. Do you have any main tips that anytime your company goes in and helps people, especially since it was your very first customer that you did this with, that you've seen successful at getting people to have a functional, awesome workspace?
So a couple of things. Well, first of all, I just renovated my office. My husband, because of COVID, has been working from home since March, and I run a company with multiple employees. And as you can imagine, there's not enough space in the office for everyone. So we created a new office space for me and a new office space for him in our home. And so I just went through the process of reorganizing my own office. And I will tell you, even a professional organizer has stuff they can get rid of. That's for sure. So the first thing I would say is make sure that you have completely separated your paperwork, personal and home. A lot of people pay their bills and deal with home stuff from their home office. That's fine, but keep those papers absolutely separate. If you need a separate file drawer or a whole separate file cabinet, keep those things completely separate and don't intermingle them. And then with home offices, I try to make sure anything that you're going to use on a daily basis should be within arm's reach. So if you need scissors or a stapler or, a pen, make sure that you can just reach over and get those items, that you're not having to get up and walk across the room or open a cabinet. The things that you use less frequently should be stored further towards the floor, higher up, or, across the room or in a separate closet area. So it doesn't matter if you have to get up and go get those items because it's very rare. And then things, for example, like little notebooks, Post-it notes, stuff like that, we tend to accumulate quite a few, even pens and pencils. We accumulate quite a few of those. So keep a few within arm's reach, and then you can keep your stash in a storage area or a closet and shop from your own stash. So instead of keeping all the Post-it notes in a drawer next to you, which crowds out room for something else that you might need nearby, just keep one or two and then shop from your own storage stash.
Shop from your own storage stash. I like that. That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. You don't think about it, but if you stop to like pay attention to what we all do, it's amazing how often you roll across the room to get something that you use all the time. And we all do it. So putting some thought into how you actually set things up and what you actually use all the time, that's an awesome tip.
And things even like your printer, if you are having to get up, now maybe you want steps on your Fitbit. I mean, that's fine.
Right.
But if you don't, if you're printing a lot and you're sitting at a desk, make sure your printer is super close by. So you're not having to get up and wander around all day.
Awesome. All right. Taking off the professional organizer hat, putting on the productivity consultant hat. Let's say that in the future, when we're all able to get together again and you're at like a party or a networking event and somebody finds out that you are a productivity consultant and they're like, okay, I'm a total mess. What is like one thing, if you were to give your top tip for being more productive, what would your top tip be? What would you tell people if you wanted to give them like one killer productivity tip?
I would say learn how to change your settings and your notifications on your phone and your computer. That is number one. I feel like people just allow their notifications to run their entire life. One of the most freeing things that I did was I turned off all notifications from Facebook on my phone. And I don't know about you, maybe it's the organizer in me, but I can't stand the little red circles. Yeah. If I see the little red circle, I must go click on it. I must find out what is going on. And that is very distracting and makes me not be nearly as productive as I want to be. So learn on your computer when you're on a meeting. There's nothing more annoying than, somebody's notifications going off, or if you're trying to work and your email is, dinging, or notifications, banners are popping up on your screen. It really kills your productivity. So learn how to fix that.
That's a great tip, because a lot of times people think about taming notifications, like you said, getting rid of the dings and the banners, which most people don't do, but that's even if they do that, their life will be so much better. But you make a great point that even the badges, like, do you really need to know that you have 5,327 unread emails, right? Do you need to see that every time you look at your phone? You probably have unread emails. So why not just get rid of that badge altogether? And almost every app, well, pretty much every app you can do that for.
I think you're not talking about your own emails, Brooks.
I'm not sharing my screen, so I will definitely say no.
If you have that problem, call me.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to talk.
That's right. Yeah, we'll talk after this. Awesome. So this was really, really helpful, Amy. I actually learned a lot. CRMs is not an area that I knew a huge amount about, so I selfishly wanted to have you on for that. But you gave lots of other great tips as well. If somebody wants to talk to you, somebody who needs help with their 5,000 unread emails, or is interested in implementing a CRM, or at least learning about the options, where can people find you?
They can go to my website. It's lastingorder.net. Or they can shoot me an email. It's Amy, AMY, @lastingorder.net. You can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and the World Wide Web. So,
yeah, on Instagram, I saw you have a cool car with a wrap on it with your logo and stuff like that driving around. It always looks cool.
So fun. I love it. I just got that done probably in June. So it's been fun to drive that around town.
So if you want to see the Lasting Order mobile, we'll have links in the show notes. All right. Thank you so much, Amy. I really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
At Asian Efficiency, we believe that you shouldn't have to sacrifice your personal life to get stuff done. You should be able to get everything done in the time that you have. That's why we've built a productivity quiz to help you maximize the time you have, increase your energy, and get you more focused. We've helped tens of thousands of people increase their productivity, and within 2 minutes of taking the productivity quiz, we'll show you exactly what you need to do next to increase your productivity. To take the quiz, just go to theproductivityshow.com/quiz. Again, that URL is theproductivityshow.com/quiz. Don't let your never-ending to-do list drag you down, and stop sacrificing your health and family to get stuff done. Take the quiz today and you'll be on your way to becoming superhuman productive. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us an iTunes review or a star in Overcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next Productive Monday.